The real reason. Homo erectus was the first human species to cook food. Imagine standing barefoot on a dry, dust-choked ridge in the Great Rift Valley under a blinding afternoon sun. You are not holding a plate of hot lasagna or a stainless steel fork. You are sitting on a sun-baked granite boulder alongside a small band of heavy-browed, long-legged hominins. Your body is covered in a fine layer of sweat, and your mouth is dry. In your lap lies a bloody, raw leg bone stripped from the carcass of a young wildebeest that your tribe scavenged from a pack of giant hyenas 3 hours ago. You lift the raw muscle to your face, sink your teeth into the tough, fibrous flesh, and begin to chew. You chew for 10 seconds. You chew for 30 seconds. You chew for 2 solid minutes. But the cold, rubbery muscle fibers refuse to break down. Your jaw muscles ache with intense fatigue. Your salivary glands are screaming, and your stomach is already bloating from the massive energetic effort required to process unheated, raw animal collagen. If you want to swallow enough raw meat and fibrous wild tubers to keep your body alive today, you will have to sit on this rock and chew continuously for 6 to 8 hours. By the time the sun sinks below the horizon, half of the calories you manage to ingest will be completely burned up just by the muscular labor of your own jaw and the frantic, churning efforts of your massive, heavy digestive tract. Why did your ancient evolutionary ancestor, Homo erectus, become the first human species in history to master the dangerous, revolutionary technology of fire and cooking? Why did a hairless medium-sized primate living nearly 2 million years ago make the radical biological decision to stop eating raw food? And how did this single, game-changing decision shrink our intestines, melt away our massive jaw muscles, and unlock the massive metabolic budget required to build the hyper-intelligent human brain sitting inside your skull today? To answer this monumental evolutionary mystery, we must first shatter the modern cultural myth that cooking food was merely a fun culinary upgrade invented for flavor. Paleoanthropology and evolutionary biology have completely overturned this naive view. Cooking was not a luxury, it was an absolute biological imperative. Raw food in the wild is extremely difficult for a primate body to process. Wild animals do not consist of tender, grain-fed, marbleized steaks. Wild game is composed of dense, lean muscle fibers bound together by tough collagen sheaths designed by nature to resist tearing. Raw wild tubers and roots are packed with indigestible starches, tough cellulose cell walls, and toxic chemical defenses designed to make any mammal violently ill. When a wild animal eats raw food, its digestive system must perform immense physical and chemical work to break down those microscopic structures to extract energy. Consider our closest living biological relatives, wild chimpanzees. A wild chimpanzee spends more than 6 hours every single day doing nothing but sitting still and aggressively chewing raw food. Because their teeth are large, their jaw muscles are massive, and their digestive tracts are long and heavy, chimps can process raw leaves, wild fruits, and raw meat. But even with those massive anatomical adaptations, chimpanzees extract only a fraction of the total calories present in their food. Much of the raw plant starch and muscle protein passes right through their digestive system, completely unabsorbed, discarded as waste. If a modern human tried to survive on the exact same raw diet as a wild chimpanzee, our species would swiftly starve to death. This startling biological reality was proven in a series of landmark scientific studies led by Dr. Richard Wrangham, an eminent professor of biological anthropology at Harvard University and author of the groundbreaking book Catching Fire: How Cooking Made Us Human. Wrangham investigated modern human subjects who voluntarily committed to strict 100% raw food diets, despite having access to high-end electric blenders, cultivated non-bitter fruits, and high-quality raw nuts in modern urban environments. Every single participant in the studies suffered from severe, chronic energy deficits. More than half of the women in the study stopped menstruating entirely due to extreme caloric deprivation, and the participants continuously lost significant body weight. Wrangham's empirical data demonstrated a shocking truth. The human digestive system has been so radically redesigned by evolution that we can no longer extract enough energy from raw, unprocessed wild foods to maintain normal biological function. We are obligate cooked food eaters. We are biological culinary addicts. How did this irreversible biological addiction begin? To trace the origin of cooking, we must look deep into the fossil record at the profound anatomical transformation that occurred when Homo erectus emerged in Africa roughly 1.9 million years ago. Before Homo erectus, earlier human ancestors like Australopithecus, famous for the fossil skeleton known as Lucy, were essentially bipedal apes. They possessed small, ape-sized brains, short legs, long arms, wide flared rib cages, and massive, heavy jaws fitted with huge, flat molars. Their wide, bell-shaped rib cages housed an enormous, heavy digestive system, a massive gut required to ferment tough, raw plant matter over dozens of hours. When Homo erectus stepped onto the evolutionary stage, their body architecture underwent the most radical redesign in human history. Their skull expanded dramatically to accommodate a brain nearly double the size of Australopithecus. Their legs grew long and slender, built for high-efficiency distance walking. But most shockingly, their jaws shrank, their tooth size plummeted, their facial muscles softened, and their wide, bell-shaped rib cage collapsed into a narrow, barrel-shaped torso identical to yours today. Homo erectus lost the huge, heavy digestive tract of an ape. This dramatic anatomical transformation presented scientists with a mind-boggling physiological puzzle. In evolutionary biology, there's a fundamental rule known as the expensive tissue hypothesis. Formulated in 1995 by renowned anthropologists Dr. Leslie Aiello and Dr. Peter Wheeler, the hypothesis states that the human body operates on a strict, unyielding metabolic energy budget. Brain tissue and digestive gut tissue are two of the most metabolically expensive organs in the entire body. Gram for gram, your brain consumes 20% of your body's total daily energy while accounting for only 2% of your body weight. Your digestive tract consumes a similarly massive amount of energy to churn, digest, and absorb food, because both the brain and the gut require huge amounts of daily calories to run. A species cannot afford to possess both a massive brain and a massive gut simultaneously. It is an energetic impossibility to grow a massive, calorie-hungry human brain. Nature had to find an immediate way to downsize another expensive organ system. The only organ system available for downsizing was the gut. But how can a species shrink its digestive tract without starving to death? There is only one possible way. You must drastically increase the quality and digestibility of your food. You must find a way to perform the hard work of digestion outside your body before the food ever enters your mouth. That external digestion engine is fire. Cooking is literally the process of pre-digesting food outside the body. When you expose raw meat to thermal heat, the thermal energy breaks down the tight, coiled helical structures of tough collagen proteins, converting them into soft, soluble gelatin. Heat denatures protein strands, unfolding them so your stomach acids and digestive enzymes can instantly break them down with minimal effort. When you heat raw tubers and wild roots, thermal energy gelatinizes the rigid, crystalline starch granules, shattering the tough cellulose cell walls and making the complex carbohydrates instantly accessible to your saliva and small intestine. Cooking increases the net caloric yield of food by up to 90%, while simultaneously reducing the energetic cost of chewing and digestion to almost zero. By using fire to pre-digest their meals, Homo erectus pulled off the ultimate evolutionary heist. They outsourced the heavy, energy-expensive labor of chewing and fermenting food to the heat of the campfire hearth. Because cooked food delivered a massive, instant flood of easily absorbable calories, Homo erectus no longer needed a huge, heavy digestive gut. Over generations, natural selection stripped away the massive jaw muscles, heavy molar teeth, and wide, bell-shaped rib cage, shrinking their gut down to a fraction of its former size. The massive amount of metabolic energy saved by shrinking the digestive tract was immediately redirected straight to the skull, fueling the explosive evolutionary growth of the human brain. Cooking was not an optional hobby that modern humans invented after becoming smart. Cooking was the precise biological catalyst that allowed us to become smart in the first place. To verify this revolutionary timeline, we turn to the hard archaeological evidence buried deep in the earth. For decades, skeptical archaeologists argued that controlled fire usage occurred much later in human history. But pioneering excavations over the last 20 years have pushed the origin of controlled fire back to the era of Homo erectus. Consider the monumental discoveries at Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, investigated by an international team led by Dr. Francesco Berna and Dr. Michael Chazan. Deep inside the cave, over 100 meters from the entrance where natural lightning strikes could never reach, scientists discovered microscopic traces of burned animal bones, calcified plant ash, and heat-fractured stone tools buried in soil layers dating back 1 million years. High-resolution Fourier-transform infrared microspectroscopy confirmed that the sediment had been heated in place by low-temperature, controlled wood fires. Even more astounding evidence comes from the archaeological site of Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel, excavated by Dr. Naama Goren-Inbar from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Dating back nearly 800,000 years, the site yielded distinct spatial clusters of burned flint tools, charred wild barley, roasted olive seeds, and heat-treated fallow deer bones concentrated around specific, recurring hearth locations. Homo erectus was not merely running up to accidental bushfires to scoop up scorched animal carcasses. They were deliberately gathering firewood, building organized hearths, controlling thermal energy, and systematically roasting meat, nuts, and tubers in dedicated living spaces nearly 1 million years ago. To see how this monumental chemical revolution transformed daily life on the ground, let us reconstruct a concrete, high-stakes scene from 1.2 million years ago in the lush, riverine woodlands of the East African savanna. Imagine you are a 25-year-old Homo erectus female sitting on a dry patch of earth near the mouth of a shallow rock shelter as the late afternoon sun begins to drop toward the horizon. Your body is lean, long-limbed, and muscular. Your broad face features a low, sloping forehead and a prominent brow ridge, but your jaw is noticeably smaller than that of your Australopithecus ancestors, and your torso is narrow and tucked. Beside you in the dirt lies a small, carefully maintained pile of glowing acacia wood coals. 1 hour ago, the hunters of your band returned to the shelter carrying the leg quarter of a young giant zebra scavenged from a riverbank. In earlier times, your ancestors would have huddled in the tall grass, tearing desperately at the cold, tough muscle with their teeth, fighting against time and approaching predators as they struggled to chew the elastic raw meat. But today, the daily routine is completely transformed. You take a heavy wooden stick, drag a bed of red-hot coals out from the central hearth, and place a thick chunk of zebra meat directly onto the heat. The moment the raw meat touches the coals, a loud, violent sizzle echoes through the rock shelter. The intense thermal heat begins its invisible chemical work. You watch as the deep red, rubbery muscle tissue contracts, turns a rich, golden brown, and releases a thick, fragrant steam packed with volatile aromatic compounds. The heat shatters the tough collagen sheaths surrounding the muscle fibers, melting the dense intramuscular fat into a rich, liquid energy. You pull the roasted meat from the coals using 2 flat river stones, letting it cool for a brief moment on a fresh green leaf. You lift the cooked meat to your mouth and take a bite. Your small teeth sink effortlessly into the tender, caramelized muscle. You don't have to chew for 5 minutes. The meat disintegrates in your mouth within 3 or 4 bites, releasing a massive surge of easily digestible proteins and lipids. Beside you, an elder member of your tribe whose molars are worn down to the gums is able to eat the exact same meal without pain, swallowing tender, nutrient-dense calories that would have been impossible to digest raw. Across the hearth, a mother holds her 2-year-old toddler, feeding the child small, soft pieces of roasted wild yam that have been rendered sweet and creamy by the fire. The entire tribe eats their fill in less than 30 minutes. They do not spend the remaining hours of the evening sitting in exhaustion, straining their jaw muscles and churning their massive guts. Their hands are free, their jaws are relaxed, and their stomachs are comfortable. As the pitch-black darkness of the savanna night settles over the valley, bringing the terrifying roars of nocturnal saber-toothed cats and giant hyenas, your tribe sits safely behind the bright, roaring barrier of the campfire. Inside that glowing circle of light and heat, with belly full of high-density cooked calories, your ancestors have hours of free time to look into each other's eyes, make rhythmic vocalizations, pass down social knowledge, and form the deep emotional bonds that will eventually give rise to human language and culture. Fire did not just cook their food. Fire created the human family around the hearth. This brings us to a profound, counterintuitive scientific twist that flips our entire understanding of human nature upside down. In modern society, we often view technology as an artificial layer that sits on top of our natural biology. We assume that beneath our clothes, our cooked meals, and our modern appliances, we are still wild, raw animals capable of returning to the pure wilderness at any moment. But the evolutionary history of cooking proves that this is a complete illusion. We did not invent cooking because we were human. We became human because we cooked. The moment Homo erectus began throwing raw food into the fire 2 million years ago, our species crossed a biological point of no return. We traded away our wild ape body, our massive jaw strength, our crushing molar teeth, our heavy protective gut, and our ability to digest raw wilderness. In exchange for a high-tech thermal processing system, we evolved a biological dependency on technology. Our teeth, our stomach acid, our gut enzymes, and our metabolic baselines are all hardwired to expect warm, thermally processed, high-density food. Fire is not an external tool that we use. Fire is an extended human organ that lives outside our bodies. When you mirror this ancient evolutionary truth onto your modern, everyday life, the connections are both fascinating and deeply sobering. Look at how we eat in the 21st century. We have taken the pre-digestion process invented by Homo erectus and accelerated it to an extreme, hyper-industrial degree. We no longer just cook our food over wood fires. We blend, strip, refine, extrude, and ultra-process our meals until they require almost zero chewing effort whatsoever. We drink ultra-processed smoothies, eat soft, refined breads, and consume hypercaloric industrial foods that slide through our digestive systems like liquid energy. Because ultra-processed modern food requires almost zero metabolic effort to digest, our bodies absorb every single calorie instantly, triggering global epidemics of obesity, diabetes, and metabolic disease. Furthermore, because our modern children grow up eating ultra-soft processed foods that require almost no jaw exertion during childhood development, their jawbones fail to grow large enough to accommodate their teeth, leading to cramped, crooked teeth and the universal modern necessity for orthodontic braces and wisdom teeth extractions. We are suffering from the hyper-industrial extreme of the exact same evolutionary mechanism that Homo erectus started 2 million years ago. Ultimately, your short Tuesday evening wait in the kitchen comes to a quiet end. The digital display on your microwave flashes its final zero, and the gentle humming noise stops. You open the door, take your hot plate of food, and sit down at your dining table. You pick up your fork, take a warm, tender bite, and feel the familiar, effortless sensation breaking down in your mouth. You look down at your plate, look at your hands, and feel a sudden, profound connection to the vast expanse of human history. You realize that your ability to sit in a warm room, chew tender food without effort, and fuel your hyperactive, creative human brain is not a modern luxury. It is the living, unbroken inheritance of a brilliant, long-legged ancestor who stood on a dry savanna ridge 2 million years ago, looked at a roaring bushfire, and dared to throw a raw piece of food into the flames. And as you enjoy your warm meal, feeling the steady surge of metabolic energy powering your thoughts, you can rest easy knowing that the ancient, fire-forged miracle of Homo erectus is still alive inside your body today, keeping you fed, keeping you smart, and fueling the extraordinary journey of the human story.